MSC 2026 is where legends are made, but it's also where reputations can crack under pressure. Every team talks about playing as five, yet every international tournament eventually shines a spotlight on specific players. The reality is simple. One dominant performance can turn a player into the face of an entire region, while one disappointing run can leave fans questioning everything that happened throughout the season. As the world heads to Paris for MSC 2026, a handful of stars are carrying expectations that are heavier than anyone else's. Some are defending champions, some are chasing redemption, and others are trying to prove they belong amongst the best players on the planet. And when the stakes reach this level, pressure becomes its own opponent. Welcome back to Mobile Legends News. MSC 2026 is not just another international tournament. It is the biggest global test of the MLBB season, featuring champions and contenders from every major region competing for a massive prize pool and international glory in Paris. Teams like Team Liquid PH enter the event with championship expectations after winning MPL Philippines Season 17 and securing their place as the defending MSC champions. Meanwhile, challengers from Indonesia, Malaysia, China, and other emerging regions are looking to change the global hierarchy, but expectations are not distributed equally. Some players are returning with a target on their backs because they already proved they can win internationally. Others are stepping into roles previously occupied by stars and legends. Then there are players making one of the biggest appearances of their careers, knowing that a strong MSC could elevate them into international stardom overnight. As we look ahead of the tournament, these are the types of players carrying the greatest pressure heading into MSC 2026, and the spotlight will be impossible to avoid once the game begins. When people talk about pressure at MSC 2026, they usually focus on the biggest organizations. But pressure is rarely about the logo on a jersey. It is about the individual player standing behind that logo and the story that follows them into every match. This year, several players enter MSC carrying expectations that go far beyond simply winning games. The first and perhaps most obvious storyline goes to Team Liquid PH's gold lane position. Ever since Kiel Oheb Soriano stepped away from the active roster before MPL Philippines Season 17, every player who occupied that role inherited enormous expectations. Oheb was not just another starter. He was one of the defining stars of the franchise and a major contributor to Team Liquid's championship success. His departure became one of the biggest roster stories of the year, and immediately put the spotlight on the players tasked to filling the void. Whether it is Aaron Shiki, Daiki Cutie, or whichever gold laner receives the majority of stage time during MSC, the challenge remains the same. Fans are not simply asking whether that player can perform well. They are asking whether Team Liquid can remain dominant without one of the most recognizable names in the scene. That is a completely different level of pressure. Every mistake will be compared to a player who came before. Every strong performance will be measured against a championship standard. After Team Liquid completed a historic MPLPH Season 17 three-peat, despite the roster changes, expectations only became even higher heading into MSC. Another player carrying significant pressure is Onyx Philippines gold laner Savero. The organization made a major decision by bringing in the Indonesian player to replace former superstar gold laner Kelra, one of the most accomplished players even to wear the Onyx jersey. The move immediately became one of the most discussed roster decisions in MPLPH. Domestic success is one thing, international success is another. If Onyx PH makes a deep MSC run, Savero could become one of the most successful imports in Philippine MLBB history almost overnight. But if Onyx struggles, many fans will inevitably revisit the decision to move on from a proven championship caliber gold laner. Fair or not, that is the reality of replacing a star. Savero is not just competing against opposing teams. He is competing against expectations created by the player he replaced. Then there is Team Liquid PH's jungler Karltzy. At first glance, it may seem strange to include one of the most decorated players in MLBB history on a pressure list. After all, Carlsey has already won international championships and established himself as one of the greatest junglers ever. But that history is exactly why the pressure exists. Throughout MPLPH Season 17, Carlsey continued to be viewed as one of the league's best performers and a key reason Team Liquid maintained its dominance despite significant roster changes. When you reach that level of greatness, expectations become almost impossible to satisfy. Fans no longer ask whether you are elite. They ask whether you are still the best. Every international tournament becomes another chapter in the legacy debate. If Team Liquid wins MSC 2026, Carlsey's case as one of the greatest players in MLBB history becomes even stronger. If they fall short, critics will immediately question whether the roster transition has finally caught up with them. For a player with such a legendary resume, the burden of expectation never disappears. On the Aurora side, Demon Kite enters MSC with a different kind of pressure. Aurora's championship-winning roster remained intact after capturing the M7 World Championship, meaning there are no excuses available for this squad. That continuity creates tremendous expectations for players like Demon Kite. Aurora is no longer viewed as a dark horse. They are world champions. Opponents prepare specifically for them. Fans expect them to contend for every major title. The jungle role often dictates tempo in modern MLBB, and when Aurora wins, Demon Kite receives praise for controlling the map. When Aurora loses, questions often start with a jungle matchup. That makes MSC 2026 a critical event for proving that Aurora's World Championship success was not a one-time achievement, but the beginning of a sustained era of excellence. Another player worth watching is Light. International tournaments have a way of turning roamers into heroes or villains because their impact often determines whether a team's macro game succeeds. Aurora's roster stability means Light enters MSC carrying the responsibility of leading one of the tournament's favorites. And finally, there are the breakout stars whose domestic performances generated excitement but who still need international validation. Every year, MPL produces players who look unstoppable regionally, then MSC arrives and presents a completely different challenge. Different metas, unfamiliar opponents, and higher pressure environments can expose weaknesses that were never visible during domestic competition. For these rising stars, MSC 2026 is more than a tournament. It is an audition for global recognition. A dominant domestic season creates hype, but international success creates legitimacy. Fans, analysts, and opposing teams all want proof that these players can perform against the strongest competition in the world. That is what makes pressure at MSC so fascinating. Some players are fighting to defend the legacy. Some are trying to justify controversial roster decisions. Some are attempting to prove they belong among the elite. But regardless of the storyline, every one of them will eventually face the same question when the tournament begins. Can they deliver when the entire world is watching? MSC 2026 is about far more than lifting a trophy at the end of the tournament. For many of the players competing in Paris, the event represents a chance to validate months of hard work, justify major roster decisions, answer critics, and prove that their success can extend beyond domestic competition. Some are trying to show they can thrive after replacing legendary teammates. Others are looking to confirm that they belong among the elite players of the world. And for established stars, MSC is another opportunity to strengthen a legacy that could be remembered for years. Championships may define teams, but tournaments like MSC often define individual careers. That is why the pressure will be immense, and why the performances we see on the international stage could shape the future narratives of MLBB esports long after MSC 2026 comes to an end. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think? Which player is facing the most pressure heading into MSC 2026? Is it a newcomer replacing a legendary star? An established veteran defending their reputation? Or a breakout player trying to prove they belong on the international stage? Let us know in the comments below, and also, tell us which player has the most to gain from a strong tournament and whose performance could have the biggest impact on their team's championship hopes. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more Mobile Legends news coverage throughout MSC 2026. Till next time!